Part 4. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wu Nian. Chapter 31. Time passed day by day. The second wolf also successfully evolved into a wind-winged magic wolf. As the Earth Bear King, the Big Bear also successfully evolved after eating the awakening earth magic crystals hunted by the explosive flame fox spirit and given by Chen Hao. The Big Bear evolved from the Earth Bear King into the Mountain Wild Bear. The Mountain Wild Bear is a circle larger than the Earth Bear King and has a stronger body. Seeing that the second wolf and the Big Bear have entered the awakening period, Chen Hao let them join the team of the explosive flame fox spirit. The next morning when the Big Bear joined the hunting team of awakening monsters hatched, Chen Hao sat on the wooden bed and looked at the card display in the book. Juvenile Single-Tailed Fire Phoenix. This card is exactly what the nameless giant egg hatched before. Chen Hao looked at the card carefully. Juvenile Single-Tailed Fire Phoenix. Hunger, 91%. Thirst, 90%. Taming, 100%. Seeing this 100% taming degree, Chen Hao's face suddenly had a smile. During the hatching process before, the taming degree did not increase. Unexpectedly, once the hatching was completed, the taming degree became 100%. Chen Hao looked at the pattern on the card, Single-Tailed Phoenix. The pattern is a bird with fiery red feathers all over its body. This thing looks a bit like a phoenix, but not like it, because it has only one tail. The pattern is not clear, let it out and see. Chen Hao stood up. In order to prevent the single-tailed phoenix from being too big and breaking the house, Chen Hao chose to leave the house and waved his hand. Transform. The card turned into a monster. A giant bird with a red body appeared in front of Chen Hao. It is called a giant bird because it is compared with ordinary birds, so it is called a giant bird. It flapped its red wings and flew in the air. Including the tail, its body length is about 2 meters. Its tail is very long, and the end is similar to the peacock's tail, with an eye. The hair all over its body is fiery red, just like flames covering its body. Master, it suddenly cried out. The voice was like a little kid. It flapped its wings happily and circled Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at the giant bird, with a hint of novelty in his eyes. Warcraft speaks when they are in the Beast King stage, and this single-tailed fire phoenix is only in its infancy, and it can speak. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Can you speak in your infancy?" The single-tailed fire phoenix heard it, and it slowly landed in front of Chen Hao, folded its wings, and looked at Chen Hao with its phoenix eyes. Master, I am a noble single-tailed fire phoenix, raised by the heart fire of the earth. Although I am in my infancy, I have lived in this world for tens of thousands of years. Of course I can speak. As it said this, it raised its proud chin, looking proud. Looking at the expression of the single-tailed fire phoenix, Chen Hao said, "Earth Heart Flame? What is it?" Earth Heart Flame, well, under our feet is the ground, and deep in the ground there is magma and flames. Those burning flames are the Earth Heart Flame. The single-tailed fire phoenix gave a serious explanation. Hearing this, Chen Hao understood. The Earth Heart Flame it mentioned is actually the flame underground. It said that the Earth Heart Flame created it, so it should be a life condensed by the fire magic element underground. It can speak in infancy and said that it has lived for tens of thousands of years. Then Chen Hao can basically be sure that this single-tailed fire phoenix is the strange beast that the explosive fox spirit said. Although it came from an egg, the egg was bred by nature. Chen Hao said, "I understand, you are a strange beast." The single-tailed fire phoenix hummed, "Yes, I am a noble strange beast." It raised its little head with a proud look. Chen Hao smiled, okay, I won't chat with you anymore. I have to prepare food for the monsters. What about you? Do you want to eat?" "No." The single-tailed fire phoenix raised its little head, "I am a noble single-tailed fire phoenix. I can survive on magic essence and don't need to eat at all." Eating flesh and grains is what ordinary monsters do. I don't need to eat. Hearing this, Chen Hao nodded slightly, pretty amazing. Chen Hao didn't think much about it. He picked up the infinite food card and prepared food for the monsters. After getting ready, Chen Hao called the monsters out. Chen Hao watched them eat. Chen Hao retracted his sight, and approached the wooden house on his own. The single-tailed fire phoenix flapped its wings and followed Chen Hao into the house. It stood on the chair next to it, staring at Chen Hao, as if observing Chen Hao's every move. Chen Hao sat at the table and ate breakfast on his own. Halfway through the meal, Chen Hao heard a familiar movement coming from the gate, and he subconsciously looked over. Xiaoying walked in from the gate as usual. It raised its head and looked at Chen Hao. Seeing Chen Hao eating breakfast, it walked to Chen Hao's side and lay down to rest. Seeing Xiaoying's posture, Chen Hao smiled. "Slutty rabbit." Suddenly, a voice sounded next to him. Chen Hao was startled and looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix. The single-tailed fire phoenix puffed its cheeks and looked at Xiaoying below with some unhappiness. Why did it call Xiaoying a slutty rabbit? I don't quite understand. Chen Hao continued to eat breakfast. After breakfast, Chen Hao went out and looked at the monsters. The explosive fox spirit and the others had also finished breakfast. The explosive fox spirit came over with the big wolf and the others. "Master, we're going hunting." The explosive flame fox spirit greeted Chen Hao. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Well, be careful." "Slutty fox," suddenly a voice sounded. Chen Hao was startled. He looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix next to him, only to see the single-tailed fire phoenix looking at the explosive flame fox spirit angrily. "Master, do you want to ride me today?" The big wolf came over, lowered his head, and looked at Chen Hao with joy and expectation. "Slutty wolf," the voice of the single-tailed fire phoenix came again. Chen Hao looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix, only to see the single-tailed fire phoenix's cheeks puffed up, and his face was full of unhappiness. When Chen Hao saw this, he smiled and asked, "Fire Phoenix, why do you call the big wolf a slutty wolf?" The single-tailed fire phoenix puffed up his face and said, "The master is mine." They deliberately try to please the master, so they are a bunch of slutty things. The little brat is jealous. The explosive flame fox spirit saw the situation at once. When the single-tailed fire phoenix heard it, it glared at the explosive flame fox spirit. "What kid? I have lived for tens of thousands of years. Slutty fox, in the eyes of this strange beast, you are the brat." The explosive flame fox spirit was happy, and it casually said, "You are tough, right? You are not a brat, then why are you in the juvenile stage?" When the single-tailed fire phoenix heard it, it puffed up its cheeks. "Anyway, I am not a brat." Woo! It looked at Chen Hao aggrievedly. "Master, it bullied me." When Chen Hao heard it, he was happy, and he said with a smile, "Okay, okay." He reached out and touched the head of the single-tailed fire phoenix. When Chen Hao touched the little head, the single-tailed fire phoenix closed its eyes, and a look of joy and obsession appeared on its face. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Don't be angry, don't be angry, the fox spirit will have something to do later. It is your elder, you have to be good and obedient." Woo! When the single-tailed fire phoenix heard this, it opened its eyes and looked at Chen Hao aggrievedly. When the explosive flame fox spirit saw this, it smiled, and then looked at the big wolves behind it. "Let's go hunting." The single-tailed fire phoenix stood beside Chen Hao, watching the explosive flame fox spirit and others leave, and muttered, "Slutty fox. Slutty rabbit. Big stupid dog. Humph." Chen Hao couldn't help but laugh when he heard the single-tailed fire phoenix mumbling beside him. This guy said that he had lived for tens of thousands of years, but his temper was completely like a child who had not grown up. He liked to give nicknames to people he didn't like when he was unhappy. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 32. Single-tailed fire phoenixes grow very quickly. Just after hatching, there is the juvenile stage, and the next day it becomes the mature stage. Looking at the single-tailed fire phoenix entering its mature stage, Chen Hao touched his chin and said, "I remember, including your tail yesterday, you were at least 2 meters long, right? Now this is." In front of Chen Hao, a red single-tailed fire phoenix was flapping its wings and flying in the air. Today, it has become a mature single-tailed fire phoenix. It was originally 2 meters long, but now, including the tail, it is no longer than the size of a hand. It flapped its wings and flew in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao raised his hand. The single-tailed fire phoenix flapped its wings, adjusted its posture, and then stood on Chen Hao's finger. It looked at Chen Hao, puffed out its chest, raised its arrogant head, and said, "I am small enough to sit on my master's hands, or stand on my master's shoulders. No one can grab me." Hearing this, Chen Hao couldn't help but feel dumbfounded. It seems that alien beasts are different from ordinary warcraft. Generally, warcraft can choose its own evolution path when it evolves from the Beast King stage to the Awakening stage. Xiaoying seems to be able to choose its own evolutionary path from its infancy. It can even choose its own size. The reason why this guy made his body smaller is probably because last night he saw the small shadow that he could pick up and caress. A 100% taming degree can cause the tamed animal to be 100% loyal to itself. The same goes for the single-tailed fire phoenix, but the possessiveness of the single-tailed fire phoenix is even stronger. This is not surprising. Chen Hao had a cat in his previous life, and that cat hated hugging other cats. Every living individual has its own personality. Chen Hao sat on the chair in front of the table and put the little guy on the table. He looked at the little guy with a smile and said sincerely, "You are a majestic beast that has lived for tens of thousands of years, so you should be more open-minded. You can't be jealous of those monsters that are only a few hundred years old or have only been born for less than a year or two. That would be too derogatory." When the single-tailed fire phoenix heard this, it thought for a moment, "Master is right, I am a majestic beast. Why should those monsters, especially that naughty fox, compete with me for their master?" Humph. Looking at the confident look of the single-tailed fire phoenix, Chen Hao said with a smile, "That is to say, they are also your master's magical beasts, your master's helpers, and they can also be regarded as your younger brothers and sisters. As a dignified alien beast, you should help take care of them, but not have any conflicts with them. Only in this way can you show your broad mind." The single-tailed fire phoenix pondered for a moment. It looked at Chen Hao seriously, "That's right. I have lived for tens of thousands of years, and these majestic beasts are just a group of weak monsters." Chen Hao stretched out his hand and stroked the feathers of the single-tailed fire phoenix, feeling its silky feathers and the temperature emitted by the feathers. He looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix and said with a smile, "They are your master's magical beasts, and they are also your master. They are still weak, so as an alien beast, as an older alien beast, you should help them more." The single-tailed fire phoenix felt Chen Hao's big hand approaching, and its small body happily nestled into Chen Hao's palm. It closed its eyes and enjoyed the touch of Chen Hao's palm. It laughed and said, "Since the master said so, then I will listen to the master and take more care of them." Chen Hao smiled when he saw the single-tailed fire phoenix leaning against his palm as if it was melting with joy. This little guy still has the mind of a child, and he will behave after being coaxed. The single-tailed fire phoenix may indeed be conceived by the earth heart flame that has survived for tens of thousands of years, but it has just been born as a life in this world. Its mind is not yet mature, and it can only be regarded as a child at best. But it is still very proud. With Chen Hao's coaxing, when Chen Hao released the explosive flame fox spirit and the others to eat again, it stood on the chair and stayed next to Chen Hao. It saw Xiaoying walking in from the door after breakfast and sleeping next to Chen Hao. The single-tailed fire phoenix narrowed its eyes, flapped its wings and flew up. Fly to Xiaoying. Xiaoying felt everything. He opened his eyes and looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix beside him. The single-tailed fire phoenix raised its chin and looked arrogant. It said seriously, "Slut rabbit, the master said that you are also the master's monster, so I won't care about you. From now on, sister, I will protect you. If anything happens, or if someone dares to bully you, tell your sister directly and she will take revenge on you." Xiaoying looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix, then closed his eyes and continued to sleep. He simply ignored the single-tailed fire phoenix. The single-tailed fire phoenix was slightly startled when it saw Xiaoying about to sleep. It murmured to itself, "You are young and have no energy at all. You fell asleep without saying a few words. It is really useless." Chen Hao, who was eating breakfast and observing the interaction between the single-tailed fire phoenix and Xiaoying, heard the single-tailed fire phoenix saying such old-fashioned words in a childish voice. Chen Hao couldn't help but smile and spit out a mouthful of water. Yet when the single-tailed fire phoenix heard the movement, it raised its head and looked at Chen Hao. The table was covered with water stains from Chen Hao's spray. Chen Hao picked up a paper towel and wiped the table. The single-tailed fire phoenix flew up and stood on a table nearby. "Master, why did you get so much water on the table? Let me help you." As he spoke, the single-tailed fire phoenix opened its mouth. Whew! The flames passed over the table. In an instant, all the water stains on the table were evaporated by the flames, and the flames dissipated. The single-tailed fire phoenix looked at Chen Hao. "All right." Chen Hao's eyes were full of surprise. "You know, there are tableware and other things on this table. If the explosive fox spirit uses magic, the whole table and tableware will probably be burned together. But the single-tailed fire phoenix can evaporate only the water stains very accurately, without damaging anything else. This ability to control fire magic is unbelievably strong." Chen Hao smiled, stretched out his hand, stroked the single-tailed fire phoenix, and said with a smile, "Great, worthy of being my little fire phoenix." The single-tailed fire phoenix immediately smiled. It can be seen that it is very happy. The single-tailed fire phoenix said with a smile, "Master, I heard from the big stupid dog that they need to go out to hunt awakening monsters every day to get magic crystals. I also plan to go with them." Chen Hao was stunned. He retracted his hand, looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix, and said with a smile, "Can it be done?" The single-tailed fire phoenix heard it and said, "Of course I can. Isn't it just an awakening monster? I can kill it easily. Master, don't underestimate me. Although I am only in the mature stage now, I am a mature beast. It is easy to deal with 1 or 2 awakening monsters." The explosive fox spirit also mentioned this before. The monsters have the strength of the awakening stage when they are born. The single-tailed fire phoenix is a beast, so it must have it. It is not bad to let the single-tailed fire phoenix go hunting awakening monsters together. It can just improve the single-tailed fire phoenix's own combat experience and combat skills. Chen Hao nodded slightly and said with a smile, "Okay, but safety comes first." "Yeah," the single-tailed fire phoenix nodded happily. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 33. In the morning, the single-tailed fire phoenix followed the large group to hunt awakening monsters. At night, the explosive fox spirit came back with the team. "Master," the single-tailed fire phoenix saw Chen Hao waiting in front of the wooden house from afar, and it flapped its wings happily and flew over here. Chen Hao smiled and stretched out his hand. The single-tailed fire phoenix, which was only the size of a normal bird, flew to Chen Hao's hand, folded its wings, stood on Chen Hao's hand, looked at Chen Hao, and said, "Master, I hunted many awakening monsters, and those monsters were so weak. It's worthy of being a strange beast. We didn't have a chance to take action today." The explosive fox spirit had come over and said aloud. The big wolf came to Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at the big wolf, stretched out his hand, and stroked the big wolf's huge head. The big wolf closed his eyes, enjoying Chen Hao's comfort, and the tail behind him swayed happily. Chen Hao looked at the explosive flame fox spirit. "Is it so strong?" The explosive flame fox spirit nodded slightly. "The flame of the single-tailed fire phoenix is not an ordinary flame. The magic defense of the awakening beasts cannot resist its flames. It can use magic to burn the opponent's defense and body together." The explosive flame fox spirit looked at the single-tailed fire phoenix. "Although I have heard that the alien beasts are very strong, I never thought that they would be so strong." When the single-tailed fire phoenix heard it, it puffed out its chest and said proudly and arrogantly, "Now you know how powerful this alien beast is." Humph! Let alone the awakening stage, even the semi-saint stage magic beasts can be easily killed by me. Hearing this, the explosive flame fox spirit said, "The semi-saint stage magic beasts are not the same as the awakening stage magic beasts. It is a level existence. You are very strong, but you'd better not touch the magic beast of the semi-saint stage, or you will die." When the single-tailed fire phoenix heard it, it frowned. "Humph, you still don't believe my strength. What's the semi-saint stage? This alien beast is not afraid of the magic beast of the saint stage." As it said, it flapped its wings and flew from Chen Hao's hand. It looked at the explosive fox spirit. "If you don't believe it, I will go find a magic beast of the semi-saint stage and kill one for you to see." Humph! Speaking of this, the single-tailed fire phoenix paused, flapped its wings, and flew around Chen Hao. "Master, I will leave first, and I will give you the magic crystal of the semi-saint stage magic beast tomorrow morning." The single-tailed fire phoenix flapped its wings and flew directly into the forest under Chen Hao's gaze. Looking at the long red path left by the single-tailed fire phoenix, Chen Hao touched the back of his head. "It's true, it does what it says and is vigorous and resolute. Its personality is the same as its attributes, it explodes when touched." Chen Hao crossed his arms and looked at the explosive flame fox spirit. "Can it defeat a half-saint period monster?" The explosive flame fox spirit was looking at the direction where the single-tailed fire phoenix left. Hearing Chen Hao's words, it retracted its gaze and looked at Chen Hao, shaking its head. Chen Hao was slightly startled. "Can't beat it?" The explosive flame fox spirit shook its head again and gave an explanation. "For a long time, the strange beast has only been a legend. Even though I have lived for so long, I have only heard of strange beasts in legends. I have never seen a strange beast with my own eyes. The single-tailed fire phoenix is the only strange beast I have seen in my life." It retracted its gaze and looked at the direction where the single-tailed fire phoenix left. "To be honest, I don't know whether a mature strange beast can defeat a half-saint period monster." The explosive flame fox spirit didn't know. Among the monsters owned by Chen Hao, the explosive flame fox spirit is the oldest in terms of age. If it doesn't know, the other monsters certainly don't know. Chen Hao looked at the direction where the single-tailed fire phoenix left, and he retracted his gaze. "Forget it, let it go out and try. I'll help you prepare dinner first." The explosive flame fox spirit nodded slightly. With the power of the book to protect it, the single-tailed fire phoenix will not die even if it can't win. If the single-tailed fire phoenix can defeat the half-saint period magic beast, it can help him obtain the half-saint period magic crystal, and then the explosive flame fox spirit and others can continue to evolve. In this way, he can also know the strength of the single-tailed fire phoenix, and at the same time let the single-tailed fire phoenix know its own strength limit. Killing two birds with one stone, Chen Hao did not forcefully hinder the single-tailed fire phoenix. In the early hours of the morning, Chen Hao lay on the wooden bed. He opened the book and looked at the cards in his book. During this period of time, he obtained a lot of magic beasts. Chen Hao counted them briefly. Mountain Mad Bear, Violent Magic Wolf, Windwing Magic Wolf, Shadow Magic Rabbit, Explosive Flame Fox Spirit, Tree Island Pig and the single-tailed Fire Phoenix that was recently hatched from the giant egg. Including the 5 shadow rabbits patrolling outside, I now have 13 magic beasts, Chen Hao muttered. Chen Hao turned a page of the book, and suddenly, Chen Hao's pupils condensed slightly. I saw that there was an extra card on the card slot that was supposed to be empty. Mature stage single-tailed Fire Phoenix. Health, 1%. Taming degree, 100%. Seeing this, Chen Hao's mouth twitched, and he smiled bitterly. This little Fire Phoenix, this is a bit too fast. It has only been about 4 hours since it left, and it came back in a seriously injured way. It seems that a mature beast can't defeat a half-sane stage magic beast in a single fight. Chen Hao smiled helplessly and said, "Are you honest now?" Now it exists in the form of a card, and it can't hear what Chen Hao said. Chen Hao can only say silently in his heart, "Take good care of your injuries." He retracted his gaze and closed the book. The book disappeared out of thin air. Chen Hao looked at the familiar ceiling above. The explosive fox spirit said that a mature single-tailed Fire Phoenix can kill an awakening beast instantly. But a semi-saint beast, which is only 1 level higher than the awakening stage, cannot be defeated by a single-tailed Fire Phoenix. It seems that the gap is still huge even if there is only 1 level between them. It will probably take a long time for a beast to evolve from the awakening stage to the semi-saint stage. Thinking about it, Chen Hao slowly closed his eyes. The next morning, Chen Hao was awakened by his biological clock. He opened his eyes and looked at the bright ceiling above. He turned his head to look at the window and looked at the light projected in from the window. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. It's morning. I wonder how the single-tailed Fire Phoenix has recovered. While thinking, Chen Hao sat up and sat at the head of the bed. Book. The book appeared in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao stretched out his hand and flipped the book. Seeing it, Chen Hao's pupils condensed slightly. Beast King Stage Alien Fire Phoenix. Hunger, 100%. Thirst, 100%. Taming, 100%. After just 1 night, its injuries have completely recovered. And not only recovered, but also evolved. The previous single-tailed Fire Phoenix disappeared, replaced by the alien Fire Phoenix. The growth ability of the alien beast made Chen Hao feel strongly shocked. It does not need to eat, does not need to feed magic crystals to give it magic essence, it does not need anything, it can evolve crazily. This shocked Chen Hao too much. Is this the alien beast? I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 34. Chen Hao took the cards out of the book. He looked at the pattern on the alienated Fire Phoenix card. This pattern? Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows. He waved his hand, transform. The card disappeared out of thin air and turned into the form of an alienated Fire Phoenix. The posture of the alienated Fire Phoenix made Chen Hao's eyes light up slightly. It is actually similar to Xiaoying in that it is also human-shaped, but what is different from Xiaoying is that it is human-shaped, and its body length is estimated to be less than 30 centimeters, which is about the same size as an ordinary bird. It is in the shape of a human being, with a pair of wings on its back, and its body is covered with flame-like red feathers. Its hands look human-like, while its feet are in the form of bird claws. After the card transformed into this alienated Fire Phoenix, its eyes were closed and its wings flapped behind it, allowing it to fly in mid-air. It slowly opened its eyes, revealing a pair of crimson pupils, eyes as bright as flames. It looked at Chen Hao, with a smile on its face covered with fiery red feathers. Master. When it was a single-tailed fire phoenix, its voice was that of a child, but now it doesn't sound like a child. But the voice is neutral and indistinguishable between male and female. With its appearance and figure, it seems impossible to distinguish between male and female. The question is, do the strange beasts produced by nature have genders? Looking at this alienated fire phoenix, Chen Hao can be sure. It has no gender. Chen Hao said with a smile, "Did you see the semi-saint monster last night?" When the fire phoenix heard this, it folded its arms around its chest, closed its eyes, and said, I just made a mistake, and I haven't absorbed all the magic in my body, so I can't beat it. Give me a little more time. It is definitely no match for me. This guy's mouth is really tough." Chen Hao said with a smile, "I also believe you can do it. If you can't do it now, it doesn't mean you can't do it in the future." When the fire phoenix heard this, it looked at Chen Hao and then smiled, "Master is the best." Chen Hao smiled. "Master." Suddenly, a voice came from the door. Chen Hao looked over and saw a shadow rabbit standing in front of the gate. It raised its two pairs of rabbit ears and looked directly at Chen Hao. Chen Hao looked at it and said, "What's wrong? Did you find another egg?" Shadow Rabbit said, "Less than 500 meters away from us in the north, there is an old man riding a one-horned camel walking towards us." Hearing this, Chen Hao was shocked and frowned. "Old man?" Shadow Rabbit nodded slightly, "Yes, old man." "You mean, it's a human being?" Chen Hao looked surprised. Shadow Rabbit nodded slightly, and then said in a milky voice, "Yes. It has been more than a month since Chen Hao came to this world. During this more than a month, Chen Hao has been with the monsters and has never heard of any human beings. But now a human actually came, which made Chen Hao a little surprised. While stunned, Chen Hao slowly adjusted his mood. He looked outside the wooden house. Is someone coming this way? Why, for more than a month, no other humans have appeared. But now a human appears unexpectedly. Suddenly, an idea flashed in Chen Hao's mind. His eyes fell on the fire phoenix flying in mid-air. In an instant, Chen Hao understood. Is it? It has only been 3 days since the dome appeared. 3 days after the dome appeared, humans came here. Obviously, humans have some kind of ability to sense the appearance of alien beasts. That guy is probably here for the alien beasts. If that's the case. Change. The fire phoenix turns into a card. Chen Hao put the fire phoenix card into the book. He stepped out of the house and looked around. Shadow Rabbit said that the guy came here from the north. Chen Hao looked to the north. Ta ta ta. Suddenly, Chen Hao heard footsteps. He squinted his eyes and stared at the source of the footsteps. A figure gradually appeared in the dense forest to the north. An old man wearing a gray robe, a gray magician's hat, and a wrinkled face appeared in front of Chen Hao on a mount that looked similar to a camel. The old man stretched out his skinny hand and pulled the reins. The mount with horns on its head slowly stopped. The old man sat on the mount, looked at Chen Hao, and then turned over and got off the mount. He took off his hat, put it on his chest, and bent down towards Chen Hao, seemingly saluting. Chen Hao didn't know what this guy's salute meant, he just stared at the old man. The old man put his hat back on, then looked at Chen Hao and said, "My name is Reg and my surname is Taro. I come from the Lhta Empire in the north of the Warcraft Forest. I passed by the residence of my senior. I hope I didn't disturb my senior." Senior. Looking at the old man with white hair, a white beard on his face, and his skin wrinkled into bark, he actually calls himself senior? Chen Hao was a little confused. However, since they were so polite, Chen Hao couldn't just drive them away. Chen Hao habitually showed a friendly smile, "No need to bother me, I just raise some small animals here, and I usually have a lot of leisure time." Reg subconsciously put aside the Beast King Shadow Rabbit at Chen Hao's feet. He slowly put on the tall magician's eyes and murmured, "Little animal." He looked at Chen Hao and said respectfully, "If you are free, can you talk to me about the animals you raise?" Chen Hao looked at Reg. Under Reg's tall magician hat was a thin face with a pair of sharp eyes. He held a magic wand in his hand and pressed it against the ground. To be honest, Chen Hao was still a little interested in this old man. After all, Chen Hao's current understanding of this world almost all came from his own exploration and what he saw and heard from the monsters. If there was a human like him, he would definitely know more about this world. But, is this Reg a good person or a bad person? Chen Hao is not sure. But it doesn't matter. Chen Hao has the book, no one can take away the card, and he also has an immortal body, no one can hurt him. Chen Hao made a difficult decision. He smiled and said, "I just happen to have something to talk to you about. Please come in and we'll talk inside." The old man nodded slightly and followed Chen Hao into the wooden house. What a strong smell of wood magic. Using magic to build a wooden house to live in is really a big deal. As soon as the old man entered the wooden house, he began to look around the wooden house, muttering to himself. When Chen Hao heard it, he smiled. He sat on the wooden chair. "Please sit down." Reg also followed Chen Hao and sat on another wooden chair. Chen Hao looked at Reg and smiled and said, "Was the mount you rode just now a unicorn?" Reg nodded slightly. "What period of mount is it?" Chen Hao was a little curious. Reg was slightly startled. He looked at Chen Hao. "The unicorn is a mature mount." Chen Hao nodded. "I have never seen such a thing in the magic forest." Reg's face turned pale. He raised his hand and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. "The unicorn is a species unique to the sand desert, and was later domesticated by humans and became a mount for humans. Although it is in the mature stage, it can only be used as a mount, and its combat power is almost zero." When Chen Hao heard this, he immediately became interested. Mature stage, if it is cultivated to the Beast King stage, will it have combat power? Thinking of this, Chen Hao looked at Reg. The experience of cultivating the horned rabbit made Chen Hao realize that the weaker the magic beast is, the stronger it will be when it is cultivated to the awakening stage. Is this thing the same? The corner of Reg's mouth twitched, and he said, "Senior, the unicorn has been domesticated by humans for thousands of years. It has lost its wildness and its talent has become very ordinary. No matter how it is cultivated, it is impossible to evolve it to the Beast King stage. And, no one should waste precious magic, feelings, and time on a unicorn with ordinary talent." Oh! Hearing this, Chen Hao said a little disappointedly. Chen Hao retracted his gaze and looked at old man Reg. "In this case, from what you said, you should also cultivate magic beasts. What are your magic beasts?" "I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world." Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 35. When Reg heard this, his somewhat nervous expression regained some confidence. He carefully took out a box from his arms. "I don't know what kind of material this box is made of. It is inlaid with various gemstones and painted with lines. It looks very precious and luxurious." Reg carefully opened the box, revealing a card. He took out the card and threw it in front of him. "Change." As Reg's voice sounded, the card turned into a monster. This is a wolf-like creature. But it is bigger and stronger than the wolf, about 1.5 meters tall at the shoulders. Its hair is blue-white. When it appeared, Chen Hao could feel a faint stream of water vapor coming towards him. Needless to say, this thing is a water monster. Looking at this body type, I guess he is in the Beast King stage. As soon as this water monster appeared, it stood there with its head raised and a proud attitude. It glanced at Chen Hao and narrowed its eyes with a hint of disdain. "This is my beast controlling Shui Yun Wolf King." Reg stroked his beard, with a hint of pride on his old face. He subconsciously glanced at Chen Hao, hoping to see the shock on Chen Hao's face. But obviously, he was disappointed. Reg looked away. He stroked his white beard and said proudly, "The Water Wolf King is the strongest Beast King in the Locket Empire. Its strength once shocked the entire Locket Empire." The strongest Beast King, Chen Hao was slightly startled. Listening to Chen Hao's doubtful voice, Liege looked at Chen Hao. "Senior, do you think there is anything wrong?" Chen Hao squinted his eyes, pondered for a moment, and said, "Its size and aura are similar to those of the Wind Wolf King. Isn't it at the Beast King stage?" Reeg's hand holding the beard paused slightly, and his expression became a little strange. "Water Yun Wolf King is indeed in the Beast King stage. However, Senior, the monsters in the Beast King stage are also divided into strong and weak." "Oh, you mean, this Shui Yun Wolf King is the strongest being in the Beast King stage?" Chen Hao looked at Reg. Reg nodded slightly. Chen Hao frowned. "Then why don't you raise an awakening monster? The awakening stage is not as strong as it?" Reg's hand holding his beard stopped. "Huh, stupid kid," Shui Yun Wolf King suddenly said. Chen Hao was startled and looked at Shui Yun Wolf King. I saw the Shui Yun Wolf King raising his proud head and looking at Chen Hao. "I don't understand anything, and I'm still here to bully you. There are hundreds of millions of beast masters in the entire human world. Who can cultivate beast masters in the awakening stage? Beast master, you can count them on one hand. You are awakening every time you open and close your mouth. Why don't you just go and raise the beast?" Humph. Shui Yun Wolf King looked disdainful. When Chen Hao heard this, he subconsciously raised his hand and touched his chin. "This." Chen Hao looked at Reg. Reg looked embarrassed and said, "Senior, please don't be angry. Shui Yun Wolf King is more outspoken and I definitely didn't mean to offend you." "Humph, I just don't like him." "What's wrong?" Shui Yun Wolf King narrowed his eyes and continued. Reg's expression suddenly became even more embarrassed. "Well," Chen Hao saw it. Although Reg is the master of the Water Wolf King, the Water Wolf King does not respect Reg. Reg couldn't completely control the Shui Yun Wolf King. There is another thing, that is, in the human world, awakening monsters seem to be very rare. Chen Hao looked at the sky outside through the window. Before I knew it, it was almost noon. Gotta feed the monsters. Thinking of this, Chen Hao stood up. See Chen Hao getting up. Reg also stood up quickly. He looked embarrassed and was about to apologize to Chen Hao. Chen Hao suddenly said, "It's almost time. I have to feed the group of small animals I raised." He looked at the confused Reg, smiled, and said, "Aren't you interested in the little animals I raise? Then I will introduce them to you." When Reg heard this, he nodded, "Okay." Chen Hao came out of the wooden house and took out a small stack of cards from the book. The Shui Yun Wolf King looked at Chen Hao's back and squinted his eyes, pretending to be a little brat. "Raising small animals, huh, it's probably just a bunch of weak-horned rabbits." When Reg heard this, he looked at Shui Yun Wolf King. "Not necessarily." The Shui Yun Wolf King looked at Reg. Reg looked at Chen Hao's back seriously. "This senior, he lives in the World of Warcraft forest." Shui Yun Wolf King's pupils suddenly condensed, and his face became more solemn. "What did you say?" "This child lives in the World of Warcraft forest, known as the Forest of Death." At the same time, Chen Hao threw a card forward. "Change." The card turned into a monster. The big wolf as a violent demon wolf appeared in front of Chen Hao. When Shui Yun Wolf King saw the supergiant wolf in front of him, which was covered in muscles and 3 meters high at the shoulders, Shui Yun Wolf King's arrogant expression disappeared, replaced by a wide-open mouth and a stunned expression. As soon as the violent demon wolf appeared, it first appeared in a handsome posture, then looked at Chen Hao. Its pupils condensed slightly, and its eyes showed joy. "Master." It barked, then lowered its huge head, rubbed Chen Hao's arm, and its tail waggled behind it. Chen Hao looked at its coquettish appearance. He smiled, stretched out his hand, and touched its fierce-looking big head. "Okay, Stop being coquettish. We have guests at home, let me introduce them to you. When the big wolf heard it, it raised its head and looked at Reg and Water Rhythm Wolf King beside it. Is it them? Chen Hao hummed, and he looked at Reg. Reg's old face was as pale as paper, and the hand holding his beard was trembling slightly. Chen Hao smiled, Reg, don't be nervous, this is one of the small animals I raised, a violent demon wolf in the awakening period, it is very well behaved and doesn't bite people. Oh, oh. Reg made two ohs with difficulty in a trembling voice, as a response. He pretended to be calm, stroking his beard with his skinny hands, but his hands were trembling slightly. This is Water Rhythm Wolf King, Reg's beast. Chen Hao looked at Water Rhythm Wolf King. Water Rhythm Wolf King met the sight of the violent demon wolf. The pupils of the Water Rhythm Wolf King condensed slightly, and its body fell to the side. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, the Water Rhythm Wolf King lay on the ground, twitching, eyes rolled up, and white foam spitting from the mouth. Water Rhythm Wolf King, Reg saw it, and his face changed. He squatted down quickly, change. The Water Rhythm Wolf King turned into a card. He looked at the Water Rhythm Wolf King turned into a card and exhaled. Seeing this, Chen Hao was slightly startled, is it okay? Reg looked at Chen Hao with a twitch in his mouth, it's okay, just fainted from shock, turned into a card, just take a rest for a while, it's okay. Chen Hao smiled, it's really timid. Hum. Reg's wrinkled face twitched, he hummed a few times perfunctorily, then raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat, and barely kept a smile on his face. But the old man's feet were shaking at this moment. Chen Hao retracted his gaze and said, I also have some small animals. I'll introduce them to you one by one. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 36. Old Man Liege looked at the monster in front of him that was slowly called out by Chen Hao. His pupils were trembling and he was mumbling to himself. The adventure group's nightmare Windwing Demon Wolf. The overlord among Earth-type monsters, the mountain bear. The spirit of fire explodes the fox spirit. Messenger of death, Shadow Rabbit. When Reg saw the Shadow Rabbit, the old man rolled his eyes and passed out. When Chen Hao saw it, he was suddenly confused. The guest's courage is a bit timid. Big Wolf, a violent demon wolf, commented. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows, raised his hand and patted the tree beside him. Big Pig, help me move this guest into the house. Falling with the sound. A vine sprouted from the ground under Reg, and the vine carried Reg's body into the wooden house. Chen Hao looked at Reg who was resting on the wooden bed. He withdrew his gaze and looked at the big wolves and the others. I will prepare food for you first. After you finish eating, you will go hunting first. I will take care of the guests. Okay, the explosive flame fox spirit nodded slightly. Chen Hao prepared food for the monsters. After the monsters finished eating, they continued their hunting trip. Chen Hao prefers to be lazy, so he stays in the wooden house and takes care of this guest who has come from afar. By noon, Reg finally woke up. Chen Hao was sitting at the wooden table and saw the old man getting up on the wooden bed. He stood up and came over, drink a glass of water. Chen Hao handed the old man a glass of water that had been prepared long ago. Reg took a look and took it, then looked at Chen Hao, thank you, senior. Upon hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. He pulled up a chair, sat in front of Leg, and said, your beast master fainted from fright. Why did you also faint? The corner of Reg's mouth twitched, and he smiled bitterly and said, Senior, take these monsters outside. Each of these monsters has the ability to destroy a country. Bringing so many monsters out is enough to destroy all the country's human country. No, I'm timid. It's really amazing. Chen Hao was startled. Is the awakening stage so powerful? Reg looked at Chen Hao's confused look and smiled bitterly. Senior, you don't seem to know much about the strength of your beast master. Chen Hao smiled. Yes, I really don't understand much. Reg looked at the young man in front of him and smiled bitterly. It's unbelievable. Reg, have traveled half of the Valve continent and have met many beast masters, and someone like you, senior, never seen it. The growth rate of monsters is very slow. A beast master can only cultivate one monster in his life. Generally speaking, parents of qualified families will choose a powerful beast cub for their children from an early age, and let the cub follow the child, growing together and cultivating feelings at the same time. It takes 5 or 6 years for a monster to grow from the cub stage to the juvenile stage, and it takes 20 to 30 years to grow to the mature stage. After that, whether the Warcraft can evolve from the mature stage to the Beast King stage depends on the magic element given to the Warcraft, the qualifications of the Warcraft, and the emotional cultivation between the Warcraft and its owner. Only when these three conditions are met, can the Warcraft evolve to the Beast King stage. There are only a handful of monsters that can evolve to the Beast King stage. Most of the Beast Masters who can train monsters to the Beast King stage are over 50 years old. As for the awakening stage of monsters, they are even rarer. Throughout the tens of thousands of years of human history, up to now, there are only a few Beast Masters who can cultivate awakening stage monsters. Having said this, Reg paused and looked at Chen Hao, a Beast Master like you who has trained 7 awakening monsters by yourself. Reg frowned and drilled his head with his knuckles. I always feel like I'm dreaming. Listening to Reg, he seemed to be talking to himself about the common sense of this world. Only then did Chen Hao realize. The power that God gave to his books was outrageous. It turns out that under normal circumstances, a normal person would spend his whole life raising Warcraft and could only afford one. Moreover, by the time a person reaches the age of a Beast King, a person is already old. Could it be that this old man would faint after seeing these awakening monsters? I guess his common sense is shattered. Reg took a sip of water, calmed down, looked at Chen Hao, and murmured, it seems that this is not a dream. Reg stood up slowly. He pulled the grey robe on his body, picked up the magician hat on the table, and put it on his head. He looked at Chen Hao. Senior, I still have something to do, so I'll leave now. Hearing this, Chen Hao said, what's the matter with you? Leg was startled and looked at Chen Hao. Junior came out because the magic aura was surging here 3 days ago, and he felt that some treasure was born. So he came here, but he didn't expect to meet you, Senior. Now, this Junior needs to continue on his way to the place where the magic energy is surging to see what is there. Hear this. Chen Hao understood. Although Reg was attracted by the appearance of the alien beast dome, Chen Hao nodded slightly and said with a smile, go ahead. Reg said goodbye to Chen Hao, and then under Chen Hao's gaze, he sat on the back of the camel again and embarked on the journey again. Chen Hao looked at Ledger's back. Although the old man is a little timid, it seems that he is not a bad person. The old man was very polite, more like a tourist who came and left in a hurry. He brought me a lot of useful information. Chen Hao smiled. He raised his head and looked at the blue sky above. It turns out that there are humans in this world, and there are beast masters who specialize in raising magic beasts in this world. However, these beast masters are a little too weak. Chen Hao took out the alien fire phoenix card and looked at it. I won't show this to him, so as not to scare him. Chen Hao smiled and walked back to the wooden house. After experiencing this little episode with Reg, Chen Hao now returned to his breeding life. Chen Hao was a little looking forward to the alien fire phoenix. If he didn't feed it food and magic crystals, would it continue to evolve? However, when Reg left, Chen Hao released the alien fire phoenix again, and the little fire phoenix started to make trouble again. Master, Why did you turn me into a car just now? The little fire phoenix looked at Chen Hao in confusion. Chen Hao said with a smile, because I just had something to do, so I need you to stay away for a while. The little fire phoenix was a little confused, but didn't ask any more questions. It changed the subject and said with a smile, Master, I didn't kill that half-saint stage monster last night, and I plan to go again. Chen Hao was stunned. Go again? Well, I'm in the Beast King stage now, and I don't believe I can't beat a beast in the Beast King stage, the little fire phoenix said seriously. Hearing this, Chen Hao could only nod slightly, but, you still have to pay attention to safety. Okay, the little fire phoenix responded happily, and then flew out under Chen Hao's gaze. Looking at the figure of the little fire phoenix, Chen Hao crossed his arms and watched it leave. This guy seems to be a battle maniac. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 37. After Chen Hao watched Huofeng leave, he withdrew his gaze and looked at the wooden house in front of him made by Shudao Pig. He smiled and stepped into the wooden house. It turns out that there are humans in this world. It has been more than a month since Chen Hao came to this world. For more than a month, he has been with the world of Warcraft. This is also in line with Chen Hao's habits in his previous life. In his last life, Chen Hao was also used to being alone. Although he has colleagues at work, he doesn't like to interact with them and is tired of boring and embarrassing social interactions. In addition to going to work every day, I go home and play games when I have nothing to do. He doesn't like contact with other people, but sometimes he feels lonely, so he likes to raise things. But when you rent an apartment in the city, you don't have the space to raise things. Plus, you're very poor and you don't have the money to buy food for your things. To put it simply, Chen Hao is more willing to observe every move of small animals than to interact with people. But unfortunately, he couldn't do it in his last life. In this life, Chen Hao wants to raise more of these things. Therefore, after more than a month of living without encountering humans, Chen Hao realized that humans might not exist in this world. After realizing this, Chen Hao didn't care and just continued his farming life. But I didn't expect to see a human being today. It feels a little fresh. Time turns. At night. After turning the monsters after dinner into cards and putting them back in the book, Chen Hao lay on the wooden bed. He looked up at the familiar ceiling above. It turns out that there are humans in this world, and these humans seem to be able to cultivate monsters. However, it seems that it is not easy to cultivate a monster in this world. A normal person needs to cultivate a monster from an early age. It takes a lot of time to grow a monster. It takes 20 or 30 years to grow from infancy to maturity. Chen Hao looked at the card collection book floating in front of him. Chen Hao remembered that when he got Feng Lang, it only took 2 days for Feng Lang to go from juvenile stage to maturity. In other words, placing Warcraft cards in books can accelerate the growth of Warcraft. 2 days equals 20 or 30 years. God said that this book has various functions. It seems that the various functions of this understatement are so powerful. Any function, taken out alone, is like an artifact. Chen Hao stretched out his hand and flipped through the book. Suddenly, Chen Hao was slightly startled. Beast King Stage Alienated Fire Phoenix. Health, 1%. Taming Degree, 100%. Seeing this, Chen Hao's mouth twitched. This brat is back to death again. Chen Hao shook his head helplessly and closed the book. Book. The book disappeared. Chen Hao closed his eyes. This kid went to challenge the semi-holy monsters and was seriously injured twice. He should have a long memory, right? However, Fire Phoenix, this kid evolves once a day, will it evolve again tomorrow? Entering the awakening stage directly? If so, what changes will there be in the form of the alienated Fire Phoenix in the awakening stage? I don't know, But Chen Hao is full of expectations. Unconsciously, Chen Hao fell asleep. Early morning. The door to the cabin opened. Chen Hao walked out of the wooden house door. He stretched, took a breath, and smelled the clear air in the forest. He raised his head and looked at the blue sky above. Chen Hao retracted his hands, put them in his trouser pockets, and smiled. The weather is good today. Oh, by the way, Chen Hao said, Big Pig, are you awake? Master. Suddenly, a voice sounded. This voice came from the earth, as deep as the sound of an earthquake. Chen Hao smiled. He opened the book, flipped it open, and took out a card from it. Yesterday, Firefox and the others hunted a wood-type awakening monster and obtained an awakening magic crystal. I watched it late at night. I didn't bother you, come. With that said, Chen Hao waved his hand and the cards flew out. Change. The card turned into an emerald green rhombus crystal and fell to the ground. Eat it, Chen Hao said with a smile. You should evolve into a semi-sane stage as soon as possible and think more about yourself. The master trains you to make you live happily. Thank you, master. The earth trembled, and the ground slowly trembled as the awakening magic crystal was swallowed. The method for Shudeo Pig to obtain magic essence is that it does not need to eat directly through its mouth. As long as the magic crystal touches its body, it can absorb it. The ground under Chen Hao's feet is the body of Shudeo Pig, so the magic crystal obtained by Chen Hao must be given to Shudeo Pig. He only needs to throw the magic crystal on the ground and it can get it. Chen Hao withdrew his gaze and opened the book. I wonder if that guy Huo Feng has changed. When Chen Hao looked at it, his pupils condensed slightly. This guy. Awakening period Judgment Fire Phoenix. Taming degree, 100%. Just as he expected, the Fire Phoenix evolved again. Evolved from Alienation Fire Phoenix to Judgment Fire Phoenix. Chen Hao took out the card, Transform. The card becomes a gesture of life. This is a humanoid life form with flame-like red feathers all over its body. Its palms are human palms, but the feet underneath are the claws of a bird. Behind it, there are two pairs of wings. One pair is on the back of its shoulders, and the other is smaller on its back and below its waist. It has a human face, which is neutral and cannot be distinguished by gender. Where human ears should be, there are a pair of pointed ears covered with fiery red feathers. Just like elf ears. It looks similar to the previous alienated Fire Phoenix, but there are also differences. The biggest difference is that it has a pair of small wings and its height. This height is estimated to be more than 1.5 meters. It has a pair of phoenix eyes, staring at Chen Hao. Master, the Fire Phoenix smiled and said, do you think my new look is good? Hearing this, Chen Hao touched his chin. Turn around and take a look. The Judgment Fire Phoenix took 3 steps back and then turned in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao crossed his arms. It's okay, but you deliberately became smaller yesterday. Why did you deliberately become bigger today? Judgment Fire Phoenix looked at Chen Hao. Yesterday I fought with that Sao Dragon again, and found that my body was too small and the power I could burst out was too weak. So, I chose to make my body bigger, about the same size as my master. I think that's enough. So that's how it is. Chen Hao suddenly had an idea. He looked at Judgment Fire Phoenix. Wait a minute, you just said Sao Dragon. Judgment Fire Phoenix hummed. It imitated Chen Hao and crossed its arms. Yes, it was a half-saint ice dragon. It's the type I hate the most, because it's so annoying, so I call it Sao Dragon. Today, I have evolved to the awakening stage. I must kill it. Give its magic crystal to the master, let the master praise me. Judgment Fire Phoenix smiled. Still going, Chen Hao was slightly stunned. When the Fire Phoenix of Judgment heard this, it said, of course I have to go. I'll go right now. I'll bring back its magic crystal for the master in the afternoon. The Fire Phoenix of Judgment said, flapping its wings behind it. Accompanied by the flying dust, the fire phoenix of judgment flew into the sky under the gaze of Chen Hao. It was in mid-air, looking at Chen Hao and said, "Master, wait for me to come back." As soon as the voice fell, the fire phoenix of judgment was surrounded by red flames, accompanied by scorching air waves, and a red flame was drawn, disappearing in mid-air. Chen Hao looked at the direction where the fire phoenix of judgment left. Is there no word fear in the dictionary of this fire phoenix? It has been seriously injured twice, and it has no memory at all. It wants to go again? Or is this guy a masochist? Can serious injuries bring pleasure? Forget it, prepare breakfast for the monsters first. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 38. Chen Hao released the monsters and prepared breakfast for them. Watching the firefox and the big wolf eat breakfast, Chen Hao thought of the ice dragon Huofeng said, and he asked the explosive flame fox spirit who knew more about the world of Warcraft forest. Ice dragon, the explosive flame fox spirit slowly sat down, and it shook the long tail behind it and said, "There is indeed an ice dragon in the Warcraft forest. That ice dragon is entrenched over the ice lake. That is an ice dragon. The ice dragon in the semi-holy stage is very powerful." The explosive flame fox spirit raised its head and looked at Chen Hao. Dragon is the pinnacle creature of Warcraft. They are born with extremely powerful physique and magical abilities. Although it is a semi-holy creature, it is not as good as the average semi-holy creature. Warcraft is many times stronger. That ice dragon has been in this Warcraft forest for nearly 300 years. There is no existence in this Warcraft forest that can defeat it. Chen Hao was startled, so, it is the king of this magical beast forest. When the explosive flame fox spirit heard this, it nodded slightly, yes. Chen Hao slowly frowned, "Do you think the fire phoenix can defeat it?" As he spoke, he looked at the explosive flame fox spirit. The explosive flame fox spirit was startled and shook its head. "It's difficult. Although the fire phoenix is a strange beast, it is only at the beast king stage. Although the ice dragon is not a strange beast, it is far beyond ordinary Warcraft. It is a natural beast among Warcraft. The king. In the current situation of the fire phoenix, it is difficult for it to defeat the ice dragon." Chen Hao listened to the answer from the explosive flame fox spirit and nodded slightly. He noticed the shadow rabbit beside him. The shadow magic rabbit was wiping its mouth. It raised its 4 pairs of ears, raised its head, looked around, and its eyes fell on Chen Hao. It walked towards Chen Hao. Looking at the cute appearance of the shadow rabbit, Chen Hao smiled, stretched out his hand, and held the shadow rabbit in his arms like a doll. He looked at the explosive flame fox spirit and said with a smile, "Eat, I'm going to have breakfast too." The explosive flame fox spirit nodded slightly. Chen Hao hugged the shadow rabbit and entered the wooden house. He sat on the chair in front of the table, holding the shadow rabbit in his arms. While eating breakfast, he stretched out his hand and stroked its plush, doll-like back. Unlike dolls, the shadow rabbit has warmth and feels really good. The shadow rabbit lay obediently in Chen Hao's arms, closing its eyes and enjoying Chen Hao's touch. "Master!" Suddenly, a voice came from the door. Chen Hao looked at the door and saw a shadow rabbit standing at the door looking over. When Chen Hao saw this, he said, "What's wrong?" Shadow rabbit said, "To the south, about 600 meters away from us, there is a fully armed orc army approaching here." "Army?" Chen Hao frowned. "There is an army approaching here, which is not a good thing. Master, if they set foot on our territory, I can use wood magic and earth magic to bury them all." The big pig's deep voice came from underground. When Chen Hao heard this, he shook his head, "No hurry, he's from the south. I remember that the old man yesterday came from some empire in the north." "Master, that empire is called the Lkta Empire." The shadow rabbit named Tuyi reminded Chen Hao in a childish voice. Chen Hao looked at Tuyi. When the old man was talking yesterday, Tu was right next to him. Chen Hao nodded slightly. The old man came from the Lhta Empire in the north, and the old man is a human. This time it is the orc army, and it is from the south. In other words, they should not be from the same force. It is possible that these orcs, the army, also sensed the presence of a large amount of magic in the Warcraft forest, so they sent people over to check the situation. Thinking of this, Chen Hao said, "Don't worry, Big Pig, let's see what they want to do first." "Okay, Master." Big Pig's dull voice sounded underground. Chen Hao went out and looked at the monsters, and found that they had almost finished eating. Now they probably also heard the information brought by the Shadow Rabbit, and they were looking at themselves one by one. Chen Hao smiled, "You go back to the book first to avoid scaring them." If it weren't for the old man yesterday, Chen Hao still didn't know how powerful these awakening monsters were, but now he knew it. If these awakening monsters were released easily, those guys would probably be frightened, so Chen Hao planned to turn them into cards and put them away first. Change. The monsters were turned into cards and included in the book by Chen Hao. The book just disappeared. Chen Hao heard the noise coming from the south. He turned his face to the south and saw dusty woods over there. Along with the flying dust, Chen Hao could hear the clanging sound, which was the sound produced by the collision of iron tools. Immediately afterwards, Chen Hao saw several people wearing armor and riding armored horses walking out of the forest. Behind these people on horses were a group of people also wearing armor. This is an army estimated to number 100 people. When the leaders on horseback saw Chen Hao, one of them, who was obviously more luxurious and noble than the others, raised his hand. As soon as he raised his hand, the troops behind him stopped. The man got off his horse. Because he was wearing a helmet, Chen Hao couldn't see his appearance. After he came down, he stretched out his big hand and took off his helmet, revealing his face. It was a handsome face. He had gray-black hair, a handsome face under the gray-black hair, a brown horn on his forehead, and ears similar to those of a wolf. Chen Hao also noticed that behind him, there was also a long tail, similar to the tail of a wind wolf, except that the wind wolf's tail was gray, while his was gray-black. In addition, he was carrying a big sword that was almost as big as him. "Is this an orc?" The man handed the helmet to the attendant beside him, then took off his gloves and handed them to the attendant. Then he walked in front of Chen Hao, put his right hand in front of his chest, and bowed to Chen Hao. It looked like he was saluting. After saluting, he looked at Chen Hao with respectful eyes. "My name is Brolan, and my last name is Lin. I come from the Orc Empire south of the Warcraft forest. May I ask who you are, senior?" This scene is somewhat similar to the old man named Reg yesterday. "Are people in this world so friendly?" Chen Hao smiled and said, "My name is Chen Hao." Broland looked at Chen Hao, then looked at the wooden house behind Chen Hao. He retracted his gaze and looked at Chen Hao. "Senior, are you a wood magician?" Chen Hao shook his head and said, "I'm not a magician. You can think of me as an animal tamer. I'm here, raising some small animals. This house is the work of the small animals I raise." Broland nodded slightly and said, "So that's how it is." "Senior, our priest felt a huge amount of magic surge here 4 days ago, and sensed that a treasure had been born, so he asked a few of us to bring the army to check. Senior, if you know anything, please tell the juniors." Sure enough, these guys also came for the dome. Chen Hao naturally couldn't tell them about the dome and the strange beasts. Chen Hao planned to perfunctorily. He smiled and said, "This. Hey, look." Before Chen Hao could speak, the army began to get restless. "What is that? No way. Is it true?" Broland frowned and turned his head slightly to look at the army behind him. But he found that the orc soldiers in the army were looking at the sky with ugly faces. Noticing this, Broland also subconsciously raised his head and looked at the sky. When he saw it, Broland's pupils suddenly condensed. Chen Hao also noticed the changes in the army behind Broland and the changes in Broland's expression. He also looked up at the sky. Chen Hao's eyes widened. I saw in the air. The Judgment Fire Phoenix was flying towards the side with a red light all over its body, and in the claws under the feet of the Judgment Fire Phoenix, it was holding the corpse of a huge monster. The corpse was a giant dragon. Master, when the Judgment Fire Phoenix saw Chen Hao, its eyes lit up and a smile suddenly appeared on its face. Its claws loosened. The giant ice dragon corpse, as big as a hill, fell from the sky. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar. The ground shook and dust flew. The Judgment Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and pounced on Chen Hao. Suddenly, it pounced into Chen Hao's arms. It hugged Chen Hao's neck, then came out of Chen Hao's arms, looked at Chen Hao with a face full of joy, and said with a smile, Master, I won. Chen Hao was stunned. He looked at the Judgment Fire Phoenix with a face full of joy, and then looked at Brolan. Brolan lost his initial elegance. He stared at the ice dragon corpse with his mouth wide open. The soldiers behind Brolan also widened their eyes at this moment, standing there as if they had seen a ghost. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 39. Judgment Fire Phoenix's move frightened these visitors. Chen Hao looked at the ice dragon corpse. The explosive flame fox spirit just said that the fire phoenix is in the beast king stage and it is difficult to defeat the ice dragon. But the problem is that the fire phoenix mentioned by the explosive flame fox spirit was the alienated fire phoenix, and that was yesterday. Today's fire phoenix is the Judgment Fire Phoenix and is in the awakening stage. For Warcraft, the gap between a realm is the gap between heaven and earth. Between the cub stage and the awakening stage, the gap between the beast king stage and the awakening stage is the biggest. The fire phoenix also noticed the army next to it. It released its hand around Chen Hao's neck, walked to Chen Hao, and then looked up at Chen Hao slightly. Master, are these guys here to cause trouble? Do you want to get angry? Feng judged them all. Broland was so frightened that he trembled all over. He suddenly turned back to look at Chen Hao. Senior. No. He was so frightened that he knelt down directly in front of Chen Hao. He quickly said loudly, Senior, I was wrong. I shouldn't have disturbed Senior. Let's leave now. Let's leave now. Senior, don't kill us. Broland turned pale with nervousness. Behind Broland, the troops lost their seriousness one by one, and followed Broland and knelt down to Chen Hao. They were trembling with fear. Broland completely lost his elegance at the beginning. When Chen Hao saw this, the corners of his mouth twitched. He knew that the shock brought to them by Huo Feng's appearance was by no means light, but he didn't expect it to be so severe. Looking at this, if it were an ordinary person, he would probably wet his pants. Chen Hao looked at Huo Feng and said with a soft smile, These are our visitors, don't scare them. When the fire phoenix heard this, it uttered an "oh," and then crossed its arms across its chest, squinting at Broland and the group of troops with its red phoenix eyes. It muttered, it scared them like this with just one sentence. What a bunch of weaklings. Chen Hao smiled helplessly, you should change back to a card. The fire phoenix was startled, and then said quickly, No, master, I won't scare them. Don't let me turn into a card, I want to stay outside longer. As he said that, under Chen Hao's gaze, Huo Feng's body glowed brightly, and then slowly shrunk. Eventually it became only the size of an ordinary bird. It flapped its wings and flew to Chen Hao's shoulder. It sat down, looked at Chen Hao, and said with a smile, Master, I will just sit here honestly and not scare them. Chen Hao looked at it. This little guy can actually change his body shape? Alien beasts are different from Warcraft. It is composed of magic elements and can change its own body size, which is not surprising. Chen Hao glanced at it helplessly, then withdrew his gaze and looked at Broland aside. Broland's face turned pale. He raised his face, looked at Chen Hao, and then looked fearfully at Huo Feng, who was sitting on Chen Hao's shoulders, with his hands folded across his chest and his legs crossed. Broland couldn't help but swallowed. Chen Hao looked at Broland's expression and knew that the presence of the fire phoenix scared him enough. Chen Hao said with a smile, "Don't be afraid, this is my beast. It is naughty, but it actually doesn't have any malicious intent." After Chen Hao said this, he thought to himself, "Does what I said mean, it just wanted to kill you all, and there was no malice?" For Broland and the others, Huo Feng really wanted to kill them all just now, and Huo Feng definitely had this intention. Broland must have heard it, and it was probably not that good for him to comfort them like this. Chen Hao looked at Broland, who was still shivering. He coughed to relieve his embarrassment, and then said with a smile, "Get up, I promise, it won't hurt you." Hearing this, Broland raised his face and looked at Chen Hao's smiling, kind-looking face, and he was relieved. He stood up slowly. The group of pale-faced soldiers behind Broland also slowly stood up. "What is that creature? Never seen it. But that thing came here carrying the body of the ice dragon. That ice dragon, shouldn't it be at the other end of the ice lake in the Warcraft forest?" "I guess so." How is this possible? That was a semi-holy monster. That monster once destroyed 3 countries by itself. And he was killed by that monster now. What should I do? Do you want to escape?" The group of orcs behind Broland had already started talking, their tone full of fear. Chen Hao could hear their discussions, and he subconsciously glanced at the group of orcs. When Chen Hao saw the orcs, they quickly shut their mouths, their faces pale and there was sweat on their foreheads. Chen Hao stretched his eyebrows and looked at Broland. Broland lowered his head slightly, his face turned pale. "Senior, then, we still have things to do next, so we won't disturb Senior for now. Let's leave first." Chen Hao was slightly startled and said, "Why don't you stay and chat?" No, Broland showed an awkward smile with a bitter smile, and raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his forehead. "Thank you, Senior, for your kindness, but our mission is urgent. If possible, Senior, please allow us to leave." Chen Hao smiled slightly, "Please do it." Okay, Broland nodded repeatedly. He quickly turned over and sat on the armored horse without a helmet, and pulled the reins. "Retreat." He left in panic with his army. The group of orcs who formed the army were also a little panicked, not at all as majestic and serious as they were at the beginning. They were frightened, Chen Hao said subconsciously. "So weak, no courage at all, a bunch of weaklings." Fire Phoenix's evaluation came to Chen Hao's ears. Chen Hao looked at the Fire Phoenix beside him. The human-shaped Fire Phoenix, which was only the size of a small bird, was sitting on his shoulder, with his legs crossed and his hands around his chest, looking proud. Fire Phoenix felt Chen Hao's sight, it looked at Chen Hao, it immediately loosened its hands around its chest, looked at Chen Hao, and smiled. "Master. Am I awesome? I killed the half-saint ice dragon and brought back its body. Praise me, Fire Phoenix called out, with a face full of expectation. Chen Hao was slightly startled, and he smiled. "You learned this from San Lang, right? You always want to be praised." Huo Feng raised her chin and denied, "I'm not learning from Sancha." After that, Huo Feng smiled and said, "I don't care, Master, praise me." Chen Hao was amused by Huo Feng's coquettish look, and he smiled and said, "Good. Well done." Huo Feng was very happy, and she looked like a child who had eaten candy. Looking at Huo Feng's happy look, Chen Hao was also happy. Chen Hao retracted his sight and looked at the body of the ice dragon. Huo Feng was seriously injured twice. If it weren't for the protection of the book, it would probably be a corpse now. But it didn't care, but continued. After 3 hard battles, it finally solved the ice dragon. The ice dragon was very heavy, but it still spent its own strength to lift the ice dragon's body. It did all this just to get Chen Hao's praise. Chen Hao didn't think much about it. He walked to the ice dragon corpse in front of him, which was as big as a small mountain. Next, how to deal with this ice dragon corpse? Who should I give the magic crystal of the semi-saint stage to? I am immortal and I raise a divine beast in another world. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 40. Chen Hao looked at the giant ice dragon corpse in front of him, whose head alone was taller than his own height, and he fell into thinking. There are only 7 attributes in this world: wind, fire, earth, wood, water, light, and darkness. In other words, the magic crystal inside the ice dragon's body must be from the water system. During this time, Big Wolf and the others went out hunting and also hunted back a lot of water magic crystals. But Chen Hao can't use these magic crystals for the time being, because none of the magic beasts he owns are water-type magic beasts. Different types of magic beasts cannot absorb magic crystals of other types, so the magic crystals can only be piled in books. The card slot capacity in the book is unlimited, and countless cards can be placed in one card slot. Therefore, Chen Hao didn't care that much. But now Huo Feng has worked hard to obtain a semi-holy level water magic crystal. It would be a waste if it is not used. Chen Hao crossed his arms over his chest. It would be a waste if you don't use a semi-holy magic crystal. How about catching a water monster to cultivate? Master. Suddenly, the voice of Shudeo Pig rang out from the earth. The voice of Shudeo Pig sounded like the whisper of the earth as always. Chen Hao was slightly startled, and he subconsciously looked at the ground. The big pig is quiet most of the time and rarely talks. Is this what it is? The ice dragon's heart has resumed beating. Big Pig's voice sounded slowly. Hearing this voice, Chen Hao was slightly startled, and he subconsciously looked at Bing Long. The eyes on the ice dragon's huge head suddenly opened, revealing a pair of ice-like blue pupils. It moved. The body lying on the ground, which was 2 stories high, moved like a hill. The whole ground was shaking. The ice dragon stood up, its eyes swept over Chen Hao, and its eyes fell on the fire phoenix on Chen Hao's shoulder. Its pupils suddenly condensed, it wrinkled its nose suddenly, grinned, exposed its fangs, and roared angrily, "If you want my magic crystal, dream on me. Go to hell for me." After it roared angrily, it opened its mouth suddenly. Chen Hao could feel that at this moment, the surrounding temperature dropped sharply, and the ice dragon was instantly covered with a layer of frost. The moment it opened its mouth, a stream of white mist spurted out from its mouth and swept towards Chen Hao and Huo Feng. The fire phoenix looked at it and waved its hand. In an instant, a red light lit up and turned into a flame shield. This fire mask appeared in front of Chen Hao. White mist hit the fire cover and the mist dissipated. Chen Hao could feel that when the fire mask appeared, the temperature that dropped sharply around him rose again. Obviously, this fire shield is the fire phoenix's defense method. Because it is a fire element, it will affect the surrounding temperature. Suddenly, the ground beneath the ice dragon cracked, and thick vines rose from the ground, wrapping around the ice dragon's neck and body like living creatures. Pull the ice dragon, who had just stood up to the ground again. Under the strong power of the vines, the ice dragon's head was forced to the ground. The ice dragon's dragon breath was interrupted by Shudeo Pig, but the ice dragon still struggled wildly. Its huge and powerful body broke several vines, but more vines emerged to restrain the ice dragon. "This guy is still alive," Fire Phoenix frowned. It flapped its wings and flew up. Its eyes were angry. "So long. How dare you attack my master?" "Master, don't worry, I'll kill it right away." When Chen Hao heard this, he said, "Wait a minute." The fire phoenix was startled and looked at Chen Hao in confusion. Chen Hao looked at the ice dragon and smiled, "Just in time, I am missing a water monster." As he spoke, he took out the animal trapping rope from the book. Chen Hao looked at the struggling ice dragon. "Big pig, let it go." The vines that frantically bound the ice dragon quickly shrank and returned to the ground. The ice dragon struggled to get up, but did not wait for the ice dragon to make the next move. Chen Hao said, "Hua." As Chen Hao finished speaking, the animal trapping rope card in his hand turned into a thick rope and swept towards the ice dragon. The ice dragon's pupils condensed before it had time to react. The thick rope directly tied the ice dragon, which was as huge as a hill, and tied the ice dragon's body into a rice dumpling. "Let me go! Let me go!" Bing Long roared, his body struggling wildly. But the more the ice dragon struggled, the tighter the rope became. Seeing this, Chen Hao was sure that the ice dragon was seriously injured. At that time, the ice dragon was directly knocked down from a height by the fire phoenix. It did not move at all, which shows how seriously injured it was at that time. Later, Chen Hao observed this ice dragon. At that time, it didn't even breathe. Through this, Chen Hao can confirm that the battle between Fire Phoenix and Ice Dragon was fierce. The Fire Phoenix was sure that the Ice Dragon was dead, and then carried the Ice Dragon over. But not long after, the Ice Dragon's heart resumed beating, and it was still struggling fiercely. This shows how tenacious its vitality is. But no matter how tenacious its vitality is, it is still seriously injured, so it cannot break free from the shackles of Shujima Pig's wood magic with the strength of the semi-holy stage. In other words, the ice dragon at this moment is very likely to have met the triggering condition of the animal traps. The weaker it is, the higher the success rate. Under Chen Hao's gaze, the ice dragon disappeared together with the animal trapping rope. Two cards appeared in front of Chen Hao. One is the animal trapping rope, and the other is the tenacious semi-holy ice dragon. Chen Hao put away the animal trapping rope, picked up the ice dragon card, and looked at it. Semi-holy period ice dragon. Health, 1%. Hunger level, 63%. Thirst level, 60%. Taming, 0. Chen Hao looked at the health level displayed on the card. With only 1% health, no wonder it can't break free from the Tree Island Pig's vine restraints. Ice Dragon, this kind of life is really tenacious, Chen Hao said to himself. Master, suddenly a voice came from the side. Chen Hao was startled and looked at the fire phoenix beside him. I saw the fire phoenix flying in front of Chen Hao with an apologetic look on its face. It lowered its head and said apologetically, "When I fought with it, I put the flame into its body. I thought it was dead, so I brought it here. Yes, I didn't expect it to live again and almost hurt its owner." Hearing this, Chen Hao smiled. "I know, no need to apologize. Your master is not that weak. Besides, hasn't it been subdued by me now?" But Huo Feng puffed up his face, but still looked apologetic. Chen Hao looked at Huo Feng's expression. He stretched out his hand and placed it under Huo Feng's body, which was almost as big as a normal bird. The fire phoenix was slightly startled. It raised its face and looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao smiled and said, "Stand still." The fire phoenix blinked, and it slowly used its pair of bird claws to stand on Chen Hao's index finger. It folded its wings and looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao kept the fire phoenix standing with one hand, stretched out the other hand, and scratched its little nose with his knuckles. Huo Feng frowned, then looked at Chen Hao with confusion on his face. Chen Hao said with a smile, "Okay, this is the punishment I will give you, don't feel guilty." After saying that, Chen Hao moved his hand and put the fire phoenix on his shoulders. Chen Hao was busy with his own affairs. It's morning now, and it's time to let the monsters out and move around. The fire phoenix, which was only as big as a small bird, sat on Chen Hao's shoulder. It touched its feathered nose. It looked at Chen Hao next to it, with a joyful smile on its face. It pressed its face against Chen Hao's and said with a happy smile, "Master, this is the best."